Hello, welcome to Spread Book Joy. Got a reading ramble today. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jack, and if you're not new, welcome back to Spread Book Joy. And today I just got to ramble about life and reading and what I've been doing since I last rambled about these things, which was probably only about 2 weeks ago. So my reading has really slowed down in the last couple of weeks, mainly because I was, not very well. Last week I posted a community post to let everyone know I couldn't film a video because I didn't feel great, but I'm feeling much better now. But I'm also moving again. Yes, again, I am moving again. So if you've been around here for the last few months, you'll know that I moved out of London to stay with family while we had our construction work on our house done. Now, this is like probably a bit more personal than I usually get on here, but we've been waiting for this construction work to begin on our house as part of an insurance claim for over 3 years. I wanted to sell our house and move for some time because since the pandemic, circumstances have changed financially and everything else. We kind of don't want to live in London anymore, we decided. So we did need this move for a number of reasons, and what we thought was we needed to move out while the construction work, which was quite heavy, was completed. We couldn't live in the house. We had to completely clear out all our furniture and everything. So my brother kindly offered to let us live here in Buckinghamshire with him, where I've been since the first week in September, and it's been lovely to live here in the countryside and have a bit of a sort of a taster of what life might be like outside of London, and we've really liked it. But we put our house on the market at last once the builders had finished the week that the economy here in the UK imploded after Liz Truss and the Chancellor at the time made their sort of mini budget announcement and sent sort of the economy into a downward spiral. So it's not been a good time for us to put the house on the market. We live in an area of London where the housing market is like, houses just fly off. Like once they go on the market, they're sold within a week to 2 weeks. And if we'd have put our house on the market even a month before, this could have been a very different video. However, the sort of house that we have is 2-bed, so it's really only appeals to first-time buyers, and first-time buyers and mortgage lenders are reluctant to lend to first-time buyers at the moment here in the UK, and people are reluctant to buy. So our house is still on the market, and we are going to move back because we thought we'd stay here, the sale would go through, we'd stay here, sell it chain-free, and then we'd start looking for where we want to live. But it hasn't worked out, so this weekend I am moving back to London. So yeah, that's my news. So more moving news. So I was going to do like a favourite non-fiction books and a non-fiction November sort of pile of possibilities last week and talk about my favourite non-fiction, and I'll do that a little bit here, but it's not going to be as polished as all of that because I wanted to film some videos today. It's the last day I've got a bit of free time to film before we have the whole weekend of packing again and moving again, and I want a video up this weekend because I've kind of promised myself that even if it's not this polished thing, and my videos tend to be quite chatty and I don't really script or anything like that, but I do write notes and I do research. I'm just going to put my videos out because I spent most of this year, in the past 12 months really, being quite erratic with my posting, and I don't want to do that anymore. Last week was unavoidable because I was sick, but here I am. I'm going to try and just put this out. It's not the polished thing I wanted it to be, but there we are. Yeah, so I haven't really finished a huge amount of books since we last spoke. I finished Deadlocked by Charlaine Harris, which is the 12th book in the Sookie Stackhouse series. It's coming to an end. We're all very sad about it in our Out of the Coffin read-along group. Amazing group as well, hosted by Ange from Ange's Book Chatter and Amy from BookTube with Amy. And yeah, we've been having a wonderful time reading these books. It's been my favourite year-long read-along, I have to say, series read-along. It's been my favourite, and we're going to continue with Charlaine Harris's books next year. I think we're going to get into her other series because lots of us have read her other series, some of us haven't. We're going to read her Aurora Tea Garden mysteries, which are cosy mysteries about a librarian. Perfect. So yeah, we're going to do that next year because we just don't want to move away from Charlaine Harris's world just yet. So I finished that. I finished Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, which I'm loving that series. It's just been one of those real comfort things to me. The Charlaine Harris book I listened to on audio, and I finished it when I was in bed on Sunday and I was too ill to watch TV and do stuff, so I listened to an entire book on Sunday in bed, and it was just perfect comfort listen. I also finished this gorgeous middle grade, which by the time this goes up, I should have a review out for, October by Katya Ballon, and I'm telling you now, it's beautiful and I loved it, and it's one of my middle grades of the year, possibly one of my top books of the year as well, just because I loved it so much. My buddy reads continue at a snail's pace, but that's kind of suiting me and my buddy readers at the moment. So I'm still reading Far from the Madding Crowd, Thomas Hardy. I'm reading it with Claudia from Spencer's Library, and we've both kind of agreed that it's the kind of book you can take at a slow pace because it's fairly episodic. It's not, you know, a huge page turner. We're both enjoying it immensely. I think I'm really looking forward to reading more Hardy after this one, and I'm still reading Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes, which is Medusa's story, her myth retelling. I'm reading that with Gemma from Gemma's Books, and she's been very patient with me, but she's got lots of buddy reads going on, so I think we're both quite happy to take this slowly as well, because again, it's a myth, it's not like a plot driven novel, it's not a huge like page turner must find out what's happening novel, so this is going at a nice slow pace and I'm enjoying this as well. I posted that I'd started The Vanishing of Aveline Jones, and I didn't manage to get any further with it, but I'm hoping to crack into this a bit more. And our book club pick, I Capture the Castle, I'm going to start that today actually, because I've been dying to get into this as well, so I've got quite a few things on the go. So on to the non-fiction portion of the chat. It might be quite a rambling one. I've got some ideas of what I want to say here, but if you're not familiar with Non-Fiction November, there's a month-long event on BookTube, and I think it might even be a national event because I've seen it, but some publishers have been talking about Non-Fiction November. But it's run on BookTube here by a book Olive, and I will link her original announcement video in the description box below, but she picks 4 prompts, and the only challenge is to read at least one non-fiction book in November, and she picks 4 prompts, and if you can make your book fit the prompts, or you can follow, you know, they're very kind of nice and broad. So the prompts are record, element, border and secret. I've thought about the non-fiction that I want to read and the non-fiction that's burning a hole on my TBR at the moment, and there is tons of it. My quick sort of background with non-fiction for myself is I love reading non-fiction. I love learning new things about people, the world, history, science, because I didn't really do much science at school. I didn't enjoy science much at school. Things that I just want to learn more about. Non-fiction is so rich, and there's such a wide range of categories within the broad category that is non-fiction. I mean, you've got biographies, you've got, like I said, history books, you've got science, you've got natural history, you've got personal development, which I know a lot of people aren't into, but I personally am. Productivity is one of my favourite things to read about as well. So I've got a few things. I thought, well, I'll start with see what I've got on my physical TBR that I brought with me, because as you know, I've got a small collection of my books with me here in Buckinghamshire. The majority of my book collection is sadly locked away in storage, and will remain so for the time being. So what did I have on my physical non-fiction TBR pile of possibilities? Well, some things might be a surprise to people, but some things not. I'm just going to see how they fit these prompts. So I've got 2 Bowie biographies. This one has been on my TBR for too long. It's David Bowie, A Life by Dylan Jones, and this is sort of told through interviews with people who were in his life, so people close to Bowie, and it's all told through their words. So I've been wanting to get to this for some time. There's no official David Bowie biography, but this is probably as close as it's going to get because it's from first-hand accounts from people who knew him. So yeah, that's on there. I also got this wonderful illustrated life of Bowie from my brother on my birthday. So yeah, I've been meaning to get to this for some time as well. So I'll just show you some of the illustrations inside. This illustrated life of David Bowie is one I've been meaning to get to for some time. And I suppose they would both go under record, because I feel like it's a record of people's lives. Biography generally I think will go under record. Then I've got this classic fairy tales, which I bought some time ago because I was doing a fairy tale project, reading lots of fairy tales, which kind of went by the wayside when I started BookTube. This is a book I've wanted to read for some time. It's like a critical analysis and cultural history of fairy tales. I don't know if this fits any of the prompts. If you can think of what prompt it might fit. I don't think it fits any of the 4 prompts for Non-Fiction November, but it's one that's on my TBR. And then I've got this, which is a signed copy of Stanley Tucci's Taste, which is his life through food. If anyone's been watching the BBC series of him in Italy, it's just been fantastic. my brother and his wife and my partner and I have been watching it, and just all of us just want to go to Italy and tour around Italy and see all the amazing scenery, the culture, and the food, of course. So throughout his book, he's got sort of his life through food and recipes. And I got a signed copy in Waterstones in Piccadilly. Stanley Tucci's actually one of the actors that we all love and love watching in our house. So yeah, really thrilled to have this. I think this probably would go under record as well, because I said that biographies go under record. Lots of my non-fiction TBRs actually on audiobook format, and I've got tons there that I haven't yet listened to and I really want to get to. I've got a video on my audiobook favourites and my audiobook tips and listening to audiobooks and things like that, which if you're thinking of getting to audiobooks and you're not sure, I've got some tips and tricks and things that helped me when I first got into listening to audiobooks. One of them was that when I first got into them, I found it really difficult to listen to fiction, but non-fiction, particularly biography and autobiography, I find brilliant on audiobook. So I'm going to put a link to that video up here if you care to watch it. But lots of my non-fiction is via audiobook, and one thing I've started listening to already, which was on my pile of possibilities, is Terry Pratchett's A Life with Footnotes, which is his official biography, and it's written by Rob Wilkins, who was his long time, like 25-year personal assistant, who, when Terry Pratchett was diagnosed with this rare form of Alzheimer's, he began dictating part of his autobiography to Rob Wilkins, and unfortunately he didn't get very far through it before his condition deteriorated really badly. So we have this unfinished raw material, which, with, you know, the blessing of his family and his estate and everything else, Rob Wilkins has turned into an official biography. So I've started listening to it, and I think it's going to be very emotional. I think, you know, the loss of him is just a huge loss. The loss of what he might have produced, really cruel degenerative disease, which so many people around the world are suffering from. And yeah, he was very vocal in bringing it into the public eye and making it a conversation. So I think it's going to be a really emotional listen for me, because he's just one of my heroes. Like, he's my sort of literary Bowie equivalent for me. So he and when I'm listening to it, I listened to a bit this morning, and where we've been staying in Buckinghamshire, we are literally a 5-minute drive or like a 45-minute walk from where he was born and grew up. So he was born and grew up, and there's a plaque to him in Beaconsfield, which is really not far from here. So before I leave here, hopefully I'll be able to get some footage of the plaque at Beaconsfield Library, where he was a Saturday boy apparently, and he used to give talks, come back and give talks when he was famous latterly. And he grew up in a really tiny little hamlet called 40 Green, which is not far from there. And yeah, he just had a big sort of countryside childhood around here. So yeah, that really nerded out when I heard that today. So yeah, I've started that one. But my other piles of possibilities now, I've got tons of non-fiction on my in my audiobook library, but I can tell you some of the ones I'm really excited to read. One is The Anthropocene Reviewed, which is a series of essays from the author John Green, all about human activity on our planet, because the Anthropocene is the geological age which, you know, is marked by human activity on our planet. Yeah, this was recommended by Jem from Gem of Books, and I've been excited to read it ever since she did a bit of a rave review about it, actually. So, and he reads it himself, I think, so I'm excited to get into that. Another one I'm excited to get to is the follow-up to one of my favourite books last year, which was The Salt Path by Raina Wynn, which was her memoir of the time that her and her husband walked the southwest coastal path after they were made homeless. So instead of living rough or going to a shelter, they decided to spend the last of their money when they were evicted from their home and had their home repossessed. They bought camping gear, and her husband had a really degenerative illness, and they decided that they would walk the southwest coast path, which is one of the sort of more rugged coastal pathways here in the UK. And that's what they did. They camped wild, they lived on this path, and the Wild Silence is the follow-up, so I'm excited to hear what happened to them after The Salt Path. Something I've had for too long on my audio TBR is Write It All Down by Kathy Rensenbrink, which is I've also got Dear Reader by Kathy Rensenbrink, so I've got two of her books I really want to get to. I read some time ago her memoir, The Last Act of Love, which was about her brother who was involved in a huge, terrible car accident think he might have been hit by a car when he was in his late teens, and how that affected her and her family, because he didn't die, but he was in a sort of non-responsive state for about 20 odd years after. And the memoir was just heartbreaking but hopeful but painful. Really broke me when I read it. And she's got 2 other books: Dear Reader, which is her sort of her history of herself as a reader, how books have helped her in her life, and Write It All Down, which is her instruction manual for writing, from what I can of memoir writing. So yeah, they're 2 that I really want to get to. She's a great writer. That's my pile of possibilities for non-fiction November. I was going to do a video on my favourite non-fiction, which I will do at some point, because I've got lots of favourite non-fiction books, some of which have been really life-changing for me actually. So that's all for now. If you have any non-fiction recommendations for me, or what are you reading for non-fiction November, if you're reading any non-fiction, I'd love to hear about it. So please put it in the comments below. This has been really rambly. If you feel like subscribing to me, if this is your first time here, please do so. Not sure why you'd want to. Very rambling nonsense, but that's why I call it a reading ramble. But hopefully I will see you again here soon. Bye.